Jennifer is here to discuss a sensitive subject we all need to talk and think about. Here now is Jennifer Graziano and Time to Talk.
Good morning, Westchester. It's 9 a.m. on Monday, and that means it's time to talk with me, Jen Graziano. I'm a licensed funeral director who oversees my family's funeral homes, Cox and Graziano of both Mamaroneck and Greenwich, the Zion Memorial Chapel of Westchester, and the Fred D. Knapp and Son Funeral Home of Greenwich. Every Monday, I come to you discussing important topics and sensitive matters that all of us need to pause and reflect upon at some point. And through this show, I hope to provide a platform to do so. If you're joining us on air this morning on 1460 WVOX, we welcome your questions, comments, and calls to 914-636-0110. Vinny's got a full house back there in the control room. Good morning, everyone. And good morning, Facebook Live viewers. Tim Judge, my co-host this morning, man behind the camera and founder of GreenwichLocal.com. So good morning, everyone. We are going to give you lots of information today. I want to talk about articles that really illustrate the impact of stress, chronic stress, and the nexus between that and diseases such as Alzheimer's, cancer, the genetic predispositions and gender predispositions as well to Alzheimer's. So lots that we're going to talk about on health today. But so much going on this weekend for sure, yes. Tim. Have you seen all these videos lately about people disturbing the wildlife? And the article the video that's gone viral about the woman who was taunting the bison and all the stories that are coming out. I mean, what is going on with people?
I don't know, because the first one I saw was months ago where someone actually got mauled or maimed or whatever from that. And why would someone do that? I mean, that was a viral video that someone went up to a bison in Yellowstone and got injured, which is not entirely a rare occurrence. But now we had another one this weekend who just walked up and was fixing her hair in front of a bison. And
I don't know. I mean, totally off topic, but I think it speaks to everybody looking for a photo op. I mean, this is something that's unheard of. I mean, you coexist with animals. You're in their territory, but to approach a wild animal, there was a story
that's
about
like 1,000 pounds.
Yeah, the baby calf that was rejected by the herd because a human picked it up, took it, and then brought it back. So public service announcement, leave them alone. I mean, it shows you this culture that everybody wants to post something on Instagram, and we've become like this mindless society with no boundaries. So that's my 2-minute rant about that, but deserves to be shared.
Well, if the topic's stress, let's not stress out the animals, because that's when they react and cause injury to the humans that are being silly. Don't stress out the animals. Leave them be.
Very true. So the topic inspired me. I recently read a book, Anti-Cancer, that really discussed so many foods and carcinogens in our food and our environment and the nexus to that, and not so much creating cancer, but the spread of cancer and the force and the aggressiveness at which it spreads. But one of the stronger points in the book that was really a lot of time and attention was devoted to this was the impact of stress and scientific medical findings that people with stress in their life, there were studies about women going through divorce, and the increased number of cancers in those women. And conversely, it showed that people who were suffering from cancer, who underwent regular yoga classes, yoga practices, meditation, therapy, had that release, there were measured declines in numbers, significant numbers. So I want to talk a bit about that. We live in a world where you can't survive without being stressed. Everyone is overloaded, from our children that have nonstop activities that don't just go to school. They go to school and they go everywhere else after. And the pressures that they face are so different. So the stress that we have, we grow with it. We grow with stress. We have adolescent stress, and then that becomes, the race to get into college, which is, again, such a different process, and then the college years, and then what happens after. So we can't escape it. So how then do we reconcile? If we know what it can do, how do we avoid it, if possible at all?
How do we avoid it? Well, it's not avoiding, it's managing it. And having 5 kids, one just graduating from college, like you said, now in masters, going for his masters, but the rest of them also falling down. Watching them grow up and knowing the stresses that they have, trying to tell them, you can manage this stress. It's not that big a deal. You just, to put your head down and get your work done. But their bodies are also built, they're growing into it. They're using their stress, they're learning from their stress management and growing those muscles. I think that's what I've observed. I'm not a professional on this matter, other than my experience. But I think as you get older, the stresses, they build up over time. And that's what, you're always fighting stress. And it's how you manage it going forward. And everything that, from our environment, from the foods we do, if you're not taking care of yourself and balancing what you're doing with yourself, diet and exercise, those stresses will compound and then result in unhealthy situations.
So I want to talk a bit about some of the things that we know stress can cause. And among them, it's chronic stress weakens the immune system. So again, patients undergoing cancer treatment, immunity is key. You really need to bolster the immune system, strengthen the immune system in order to fight the disease. So again, something that we know there's a direct correlation between stress and a weakened immune system. Reading an article from City of Hope online, again, everybody experiences stress, but chronic stress, it's different. It's that perpetual weighted, that heaviness that is just constantly over you. And that leads to depression as well. And again, depression can cause fatigue. Fatigue will result in a lack of exercise. All of these behaviors, again, are weakening the body, weakening the immune system, and disabling your fight or flight syndrome. So we see, again, stress is known to speed up the spread of cancer throughout the body, especially in ovarian, breast, and colorectal cancer. When the body becomes stressed, neurotransmitters like norepinephrine are released, which stimulate the growth of the cancer cells. The stimulation can help cancer cells evade death, and they expand and they go to new environments in the body and they attack. So avoiding stress, again, it's difficult, but there are so much out there now, I feel, in terms of resources that we really can have ways to help be mindful and calm the mind and body. It's so interesting, you wouldn't really think it, but it's so true. A yoga class, a meditation class, and there's so many apps online available to us. Just going online, there's the Calm app. There are ways to do a 10-minute meditation a day, and something so seemingly simple can really, really yield such benefits. So things that we don't think about often. Do you know if do you meditate, Tim?
No, not directly. I do.
What do you do indirectly?
I think when I exercise, I go into a space where, I don't listen to music while I'm exercising or anything like that. So I get deep into my own thoughts. So I would call that, passive meditation.
Well, that's very true. But exercise again, and it doesn't have to be, it doesn't have to be anything. It's so intimidating to start exercise for the first time, but it could be something as a 15-minute walk.
Whatever.
On a morning like this.
Yeah, that's what I've read as well. That even just getting out and doing any kind of 15 minutes of a good, brisk walk is so much better for you than not doing anything, obviously. But it takes just as little as that to see benefits, and doing that on a regular basis, just getting up to stretch and walk, even if you don't have a regular exercise routine.
Agreed. So one of the other articles that I was reading about from a researcher at Temple University is chronic stress also harms the brain and has been known to have links to dementia. it says that chronic stress in particular has been shown to harm the brain in a variety of ways. And inflammation is something that we really, really need to be aware of. There's so many diets that are out there and available that help reduce inflammation in the body, which is what we want to do. But inflammation is one of the primary ways that chronic stress affects the brain. When the body is stressed, pro-inflammatory cytokines are produced, which can damage cells and lead to cognitive decline. Again, when you're overloaded, you are sending, these transmitters are really going like crazy in the mind. And over time, it just yields to that cognitive decline, that memory impairment, that memory loss, that inability to function. They always talk about how babysitting your grandchildren and keeping your mind sharp. There's so many things you can do to also promote brain health. But again, over time, this is being, these things are being documented. Things that we took for granted for so long, we're often quick to say, oh, I'll be fine. This doesn't matter. It's really not true.
Well, I'll add that one of the greatest misnomers is, to say comfort food. Oh, I'll have some comfort food, or give yourself a snack. Sugar and comfort foods are most definitely probably not good for you. Whatever you're reaching for comfort food, probably not a salad as a comfort food. But, they say fasting is good for you, all that kind of stuff. But comfort food is uncomfortable for your body. And,
absolutely.
I can't think of a comfort food that I would categorize as something that's going to be good for me. So, reaching out for the snacks or some kind of comfort food, probably not the best thing for you at all.
And they also talk about sugar and its connection to cancer as well. It's really one of the worst things that you can do. And you can, and obesity being on the rise, food is made so much differently, all the GMOs and processed foods. And you have to really start at such a young age. It's not, not to say you're not putting your kids on a diet, but awareness in food, awareness of what you're taking in your body, that starts at birth, really.
Yeah.
So you have to grow your children up with that mindset. Everything in moderation, which I still think is the best diet, as well as, intake, fruits and vegetables should be introduced at a young age. And, you try your best and then you send them off to school and then it's like, I
wish I could send them off to school. They're still, all of them are still home.
But I'm talking about like young school, like preschool. Like, you try 4 years not to have any like juice or juice boxes, and you go to like a party, and it's like, oh,
yeah. There used to be only sodas on, Saturday night with the pizza night and soda, and now their sodas crept into their life, and I'm watching them eat it. And I'm like, wait a minute. It's not Saturday night. Why are you having soda on a not Saturday night? But
I think we could have do a whole show on
I can't control them anymore.
The health effects of that.
Yeah.
Going back though to mental and cognitive health, there are actually studies now that show that air pollution has been related to a variety of, obviously, asthma, lung cancer, heart disease. But recent studies also suggest, published by the British Medical Journal, that there's strong evidence for a biological relationship between air pollution and the onset of dementia. So these small air pollutants known as PM 2.5 particles, those specifically are being shown to have a correlation to dementia. PM 2.5 exposure, their authors note that there's a 17% increase in the incidence of dementia for every 2 microgram increase as they measure these PM 2.5s. Again, what we're emitting into the air, and it all paints a picture that the world is certainly much different, and you have to really be aware of everything. Not to say live your life afraid of everything and not to go out, because we don't recommend that, but we are really starting to see the impact of where we live, how we live, and what we eat, and what it's doing to our body. And I think that's the overall message today. Even there's such a thing. I was never aware of soaps and detergents and what is in these products. I got introduced to an app by my cousin over the weekend Yuka, I think it's called, where you can scan and see everything from food and products that you have. And again, things like that, you don't want to be neurotic, but you do want to raise awareness for sure.
You're trying to say reduce your stress level, and then you introduce that app where you're scanning everything to find out what stresses you out. So
goes hand in hand. Tim, did you know there was another story published about women and Alzheimer's disease, and that's a true story of gender inequality, that the statistics are higher in women. Did you know that?
I didn't know that.
So nearly 2/3 of Americans with Alzheimer's disease currently are women. And now there's questions about the validity of this long-held assumption that because women tend to live longer than men, that was the reason for those numbers. But they're saying not so much. It's not really just attributed to that longer lifespan. So what else might put women at extra risk? Could it be genetics, biological differences in how men and women age, or lifestyle factors that specifically pertain to women? And obviously they want to answer these questions so they can help paint a better picture. Research reports show that estimate by age 65, women have a 1 in 6 chance of developing Alzheimer's disease throughout some point in their life. And that was compared against a 1 in 11 chance with men at the same age. While age is the greatest risk factor for developing Alzheimer's. Oh, hang on one second. Is that a caller on the line? Hi, is that Joanne on the line?
Yes. Hi.
Hey, Joanne. How are you?
Hi. How are you? Good, thank you. How are you doing, Jen?
Great. Great to hear your voice.
Good. And your friend also.
Tim, yes.
Oh, I also know the Judge family in New Rochelle, big family, Emily Judge.
Yeah.
And I don't know if he's related to.
Yes, they're hard to avoid. There's a lot of us.
Yeah. Big family. Yep. God bless. Anyway, with what you're saying, going along with that, I don't know if you did studies or you reading on, my statement is, you can imagine the effect that's all going to have on these children today, being exposed to what they were exposed to in terms of, number one, just being locked down like they were a couple of years and not being able, therefore, to socialize. And then they're all on their iPads, iPhones, this, that, and the other.
Sure.
Joanne, you mean the sociological effects on kids, the cognitive decline, the emotional effects, those are the COVID casualties as well. And they don't get enough attention. And it's something we probably won't fully appreciate and recognize until they're much older.
Until later. I know. And it's very scary to me because, I think about that. And then, with that, the fact that they also this bullying is such a big thing. So you can imagine, even where it causes, I'm sure you guys have heard deaths. Also, children take their suicide. Suicide rate is up because of that. Is what I meant to say. There was that 14-year-old girl I was watching her dad speak about it on TV in New Jersey. And just the pressure and the stress from that alone, and bullying in and by itself, to me, is such a big thing today. And I'm just so against it. But so imagine what these kids are going to go through. I can't even begin to, by the time they get that age, or not even, way younger than even the ages that you're speaking about. But the effect that, is, I don't know how you deal with that, or what, if you have any kind of
it's very difficult to be a parent of a middle school girl in this day and age. It absolutely is, because
and younger.
Yeah, well, you're fighting to raise them with these values that you speak of, and these values that we have, and the world is against you. Everything is against you. When you have to have conversations with your children about gender, this is a world gone mad, and I have to tell you. Never in my lifetime would I have expected that I would have a child and grow her up in a world so vastly different from mine. I wasn't by any means older when I had her. And I always say this, the generation gap between myself and my parents was minimal. I grew up in a very similar world to my parents. They were born in the 50s. I was born spot on 1980. But now, I can't relate to anything of what, and here we are. She's going to the same school that I did. She's an Ursuline girl, and relatively sheltered there, but not so much. I mean, the world is just crazy. There's only so much you can keep from them. But again, you have to fight every day to raise them with values and to continue to show them what they're seeing in the world at large. It's not okay. But you're right.
Exactly. And Jen, I'm sorry, just to, not to interrupt you, but and one more thing that really scares me is I'm going to go to that meeting at the library in New Rochelle. It is so it's a little tougher. It's a city, New Rochelle, but there's lots of beauty to it too.
Yes. I'm a New Rocheller at heart. Yep.
Yep. But so that they're doing they're having, as a matter of fact, a transgender person come in and read to. They're having a story hour, which my kids are. I've done it with them, and they do it with their kids. They have, we have a 2.5-year-old. My daughter has a 3 and a 6-year-old, and those are very important programs at the libraries. However, to do this, I don't know what the point of the meeting is going to be, to express our dismay or whatever. Worse than that, I'll just use that word.
Fight the good fight, Joanne.
But pardon me?
Fight the good fight. Good for you.
Yeah, big time. Because they're okaying that transgender person to come in, or I don't know if it's a group or whatever. I didn't get the particulars totally on it, but that they're going to read to, and in other words, they read it in favor of transgender business to a 3-year-old. I mean, really, is that necessary? So imagine even that to deal with.
It's not.
Because I've seen what they're doing in the schools, like up in some of their schools, that if you want to identify as a cat, they have a little girl. They told the mother to bring in a little litter box for the girl. Yeah. I mean, are you kidding me?
No, it's just insane, and it's just trying to shove this narrative down all of us. I mean, there is no need to discuss anything remotely connecting to sexuality to anyone at that age. I mean, and it's something that was never done before. A story hour is a story hour, and it's. I mean, they are just They're taking our kids from their youngest ages and growing them up with this narrative. And then if you're against it, you're bigoted. So, let's talk about safety of our kids. These are not safe subjects. And we're robbing them of a childhood. And, again, we're setting a stage up for a disaster down the road.
So scary, Jen.
So I certainly appreciate your insights, Joanne.
How about my last sentence, Jen? How about they teach them, what we used to learn in school, not keep religion and keep sex out of it. Leave that to the parents,
I agree.
But it really, it's just insane. I'm so afraid with these kids today.
Well, just give them a good family, and that's the best that you can do. Well, thank you.
All right.
Thank you so much, Joanne. Always great to hear from you. Thanks for listening.
Take care.
Going back to connecting back to health effects as well. Mental health, again, there are studies now that also show that researchers have shown association with different psychiatric conditions such as mental disorders like anxiety, addictive behavior. Those are also being shown to cause an earlier onset of dementia. And our kids are growing up very anxious. That's a thing. Depression. Several studies have identified depression as a preventable risk factor associated with dementia. So you do see a lot more attention being given to mental health awareness now, which I credit. I think it's a great thing. On the morning show today, actually, Assemblywoman Shimsky said that there was a roundtable up in Albany about that last week. I think we are realizing that these are things that need to be addressed. And that certainly goes back to the social media concerns that we have and the production of anxiety and depression in our youth. There's such a correlation of that. Anybody you talk to around my age, we all say it was the cell phones and social media that's really created the biggest difference between ourselves and our children.
100%, yes.
You can't shut off. And again, I don't allow her to have it, and then that becomes problematic as well.
Sure.
But
I have 2 high school girls, and they didn't get phones until 8th grade. They, when they graduated 8th grade, that's when they got phones. So they went off to high school together. But their head is in their phone, most of the time. So they get, if I dare to check their screen time, it's, an hour or more a day they're averaging in that phone. And so, that's my competition to, how do I teach them and how do I, get in their head and what's good and what's bad, because they're getting bombarded with, opinions that they don't even share with me, because,
Right.
they're not going to share what they're looking at on their own phone. That's a hard enough conversation. But
well, imposing limits is certainly the best safeguard. And I have to tell you, that was quite a tutorial for me, and self-taught, very proud of that. Yeah. But I even think my daughter was surprised that I figured out how to do that. But that's the problem too. I mean, they're smarter than us. I mean, in your case, you're the most tech savvy person that I know. But so your kids probably have a run for their money. But nonetheless, a lot that we discussed today, a lot of food for thoughts. We hope you take this conversation further and do some great research as well. And this is Jen Graziano with Tim Judge, thanking you for taking the time to listen as we took the time to talk. Like the show, follow us on timetotalkwithjen.com and sign up for the podcast. Have a great day, everyone. Bye-bye.